Hey, all right. Welcome back, everybody. We're so glad to have you joining us again for our daily Bible reading. This is going to be day 167, and we're going to be covering 1 Kings chapter 9, followed by the parallel account with a few more details in 2 Chronicles chapter 8. So let's get settled in here. Hope you got your coffee or tea or whatever you prefer. And if you're ready to go, let's begin. The Lord's Response, Chapter 9. When Shlomo, or Solomon, finished building the temple of the Lord, the royal palace, and all that Solomon desired to do, the Lord appeared to Solomon a second time, just as he had appeared to him at Gibeon. The Lord said to him, I have heard your prayer and petition you have made before me. I have consecrated this temple you have built to put my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will be there at all times. As for you, if you walk before me as your father David walked, with a heart of integrity and in what is right, doing everything I have commanded you, and if you keep my statutes and ordinances, I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised your father David. You will never fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. If you or your sons turn away from following me and do not keep my commands, my statutes that I have set before you, and if you go and serve other gods and bow and worship to them, I will cut off Israel from the land I gave them, and I will reject the temple I have sanctified for my name. Israel will become an object of scorn and ridicule among all the peoples. Though this temple is now exalted, everyone who passes by will be appalled and will scoff. They will say, why did the Lord do this to this land and this temple? Then they will say, because they abandoned the Lord their God, who brought their ancestors out of the land of Egypt. They held on to other gods, and bowed and worshipped to them, and served them. Because of this, the Lord brought all this ruin on them. King Hiram's 20 towns. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon had built the two houses, the Lord's temple and the royal palace, King Hiram of Tsur, having supplied him with cedar and cypress logs and gold for his every wish, King Solomon gave Hiram 20 towns in the land of Galilee. So Hiram went out from Tsur to look over the towns that Solomon had given him, but he was not pleased with them. So he said, what are these towns you've given me, my brother? So he called them the land of Kabul, as they are still called today. Now Hiram had sent the king 9,000 pounds of gold. Solomon's forced labor. This is the account of the forced labor that King Solomon had imposed to build the Lord's temple, his own palace, the supporting terraces, the wall of Jerusalem, and Hatzor, Megiddo, and Gezer. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had attacked and captured Gezer. He then burned it, killed the Canaanites who lived in the city, and gave it as a dowry to his daughter, Solomon's wife. Then Solomon rebuilt Gezer, Lower Beit Horon, Balaath, Tamar, in the wilderness of Judah, all the storage cities that belonged to Solomon, the chariot cities, the cavalry cities, and whatever Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, Lebanon, and anywhere else in the land of his dominion. As for all the peoples who remained, of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, who were not Israelites, their descendants who remained in the land after them, those whom the Israelites were unable to destroy completely. Solomon imposed forced labor on them. It is still this way today. But Solomon did not consign the Israelites to slavery. They were soldiers, his servants, his commanders, his captains, and commanders of his chariots and his cavalry. These were the deputies who were over Solomon's work, 550 who supervised the people doing the work. Solomon's other activities. Pharaoh's daughter moved from the city of David to the house that Solomon had built for her. He then built the terraces. 3 times a year, Solomon offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar he had built for the Lord, and he burned incense with them in the Lord's presence. So he completed the temple. King Solomon put together a fleet of ships at Ezion-Geber, which is near Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. With the fleet, Hiram sent his servants, experienced seamen, along with Solomon's servants. They went to Ophir and acquired gold there, 16 tons, and delivered it to Solomon. Now let's jump over to 2 Chronicles chapter 8. Solomon's later building projects. At the end of 20 years during which Solomon had built the Lord's temple and his own palace, Solomon had rebuilt the cities of Hiram. Solomon had rebuilt the cities Hiram gave him and settled Israelites there. Solomon went to Hamath Sobah and seized it. He built Tadmor in the wilderness along with all the storage cities that he built in Hamath. He built Upper Beth-horon and Lower Beth-horon, fortified cities with walls, gates, and bars. Baalat, all the storage cities that belonged to Solomon, all the chariot cities, the cavalry cities, and everything Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, Lebanon, and anywhere else in the land of his dominion. As for all the peoples who remained of the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, who were not from Israel, their descendants who remained in the land after them, those the Israelites had not completely destroyed, Solomon imposed forced labor on them. It is this way today. But Solomon did not consign the Israelites to be slaves for his work. They were soldiers, commanders of his captains, and commanders of his chariots and his cavalry. These were King Solomon's deputies, 250 who supervised the people. Solomon brought the daughter of Pharaoh from the city of David to the house he had built for her, for he said, "My wife must not live in the house of King David of Israel, because the places the ark of the Lord has come into are holy." Public worship established at the temple. At that time, Solomon offered burnt offerings to the Lord on the Lord's altar he had made in front of the portico. He followed the daily requirement for offerings according to the commandment of Moses for Shabbats, new moons, and the 3 annual appointed festivals, the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of shelters. According to the ordinances of his father David, he appointed the divisions of the priests over their service, of the Levites over their responsibilities to offer praise and to minister before the priests following the daily requirement, and of the gatekeepers by their divisions with respect to each temple gate. For this had been the command of David, the man of God. They did not turn aside from the king's command regarding the priests and the Levites concerning any matter or concerning the treasuries. All of Solomon's work was carried out from the day the foundation was laid for the Lord's temple until it was finished. So the Lord's temple was completed. Solomon's fleet. At that time, Solomon went to Ezion-Geber and to Eloth on the seashore in the land of Edom. So Hiram sent ships to him by his servants, along with crews of experienced seamen. They went with Solomon's servants to Ophir, took from there 17 tons of gold, and delivered it to King Solomon. May the Lord bless the reading and study of his word.